Well, where it begins, I guess, is kind of um, it just always was. It didn't really have a beginning. As I was growing up, I was just kind of prone to like self sabotage. It wasn't just my environment or just my living situations, but the way I interpreted everything was always in a self destructive way. Um, I got into I got into doing drugs and drinking at a very early age. Because of my environment, I was kind of like shepherded right into like a street life type of life. And by the time I was 13, um, I was having consequences that would shape my life. It was like I was preparing to be a person that would spend a lot of time incarcerated as a kid because that's just what happened from group homes to like rehabs and um, just a lot of disciplinary action in my life. But I always held on to some semblance that I could still do what I want and just wanted the consequences in life to stop. And
Mm,
turns out it just doesn't work like that.
yeah, I know we all wish that that was the case. Is
Yeah,
there a particular turning point or a moment that you can remember that offset the behavior
yeah. You mean that developed into that behavior, or that I came out of that behavior?
that developed into the behavior?
Well, yeah, I was adopted by my grandparents, and so I didn't know my father, my biological father, and my mother was very young when she had me. So there was like I kind of always had like abandonment issues and developmental issues because of that. Since my family structure didn't fit the social norm, I just didn't handle that well. Some kids do handle it well. I did not. And I think they seen me as like a reflection of my my mother, and kind of it was like the expectation for me to follow in the way she lived her life kind of made them like overly oppressive towards me, and they try to like force a lot of construct on my life that I just didn't see, like I didn't understand, and I was very rebellious to it. So
Hmm.
it wasn't exactly a turning point. It was just the way it was like it was the only way I could do anything was to vent out. And I was kind of a smart kid, so I figured I should understand what was going on in my life, and there was just no explanation.
Hmm.
But I could say all of that though has given me an insight to two answers about myself. Just it came, through a lot of struggle, through a lot of turmoil. Through suffering, I became a person that understands an amount of depth of like just bad situations, and
Hmm.
how people interpret, like how I internalize stuff, and just um, created a bad character for myself,
Hmm.
and a poor insight for life.
Hmm. Well, and so that was your venting. That's the way you, as a child, and a lot of children can, relate to that. So, as a child, you went through this, and when was the first time that did you realize you were going down the wrong path, or was it just a cycling of behavior? Was it like, oh, you went to jail and it kind of, you said, okay, this is wrong, or what happened? Like, when?
Well, I discovered drugs and alcohol, and it was a release. And when I drank, or when I did drugs, the shame was gone, and I found some kind of acceptance in the things around me, and that was the one group that nobody could take away from me, because no matter what my consequence is, that part of society would always welcome me back. So I might
Wow.
not get back into good things, but those bad things were always there, and it's like the option of being a thief, or being a person who does drugs, or a person drinks was always available. It was, was fall into it. But the option of playing baseball with the kids from the neighborhood, or that was an immediate acceptance. And I found an identity in that, in being the kid that had, that had pot, that, was at the party, and it gave me something to talk about. It loosened me up with being able to be social. Instead of like I had this familial shame, I didn't have that in this kind of area. So I was drawn to it. I would not let that go for anything.
How long were you? You said you went to jail, right? How old were you when you went to jail?
Well, the first time I was arrested, I was like 16. And then I did an alternative to incarceration. And then I was in and out for the next couple of years. And then I did about 5 years in my early 20s. But during all that time, I never once thought that I can do anything other than what I have always done. And unfortunately, during that time, I developed an affinity for heroin, which would not let me go. It was like the first, like alcohol was really good, marijuana was very good, cocaine was really good, but heroin was like the perfect amendment to my life. It was exactly what my body craved. It was exactly nothing whatsoever was as bad as it was when I was on that. And
when you were on heroin.
Yeah, and I was drawn to it like a moth to a flame.
So you were suppressing all those things, that you had previously in your childhood that were never resolved. And so you went to jail. I think the second time you said you did 5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. When was the third? How many times did you go?
Okay, so the catalyst for me turning my life around was I got out. I moved down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was a little bit of freedom here. This is such a beautiful city.
It is.
The people are amazing. This is very conducive for a person to turn their life around, for me at least.
Awesome.
But every time I would try to get away from that, I would always hold on to alcohol. Like I would not, because I had such big consequences and such serious events, and had such strong addictions like heroin. I didn't think alcohol would ever be, that was just drinking. I didn't take it seriously. But it always brought me back to the worst part of myself. That was feeding that inner wolf that only wanted to do me harm, instead of the one that always wants to do the right thing. So I'm down here for a little while, in and out of levels of society, where I would be employed and I would be unemployable. And the last few years before the main catalyst happened, I was completely unemployable. I wasn't myself. I was the worst version of myself. And so I ended up, to skip through all that, I ended up in a situation where I was just constantly a party. I was constantly doing drugs, but my world was really small. And I was out at a bar one night, and I met a girl, and I took her home. My house was a disaster, and I ended up taking her to a hotel and passed out. I wake up in the morning, and the cleaning lady was knocking on the door, telling me it was checkout time. So the girl was still there. I didn't realize she was. I thought she was going to leave because she said she had to be somewhere at 5:30 in the morning. So, being the junkie that I was, I didn't want to wake her up because I wanted to get my fix right. I thought she was snoring. She was making a snoring noise. So I go and I rent the room for another day, and I come back, and I had a shot for myself, because on heroin you get physical withdrawals. Before I do that, I have blinders on to the whole entire world. It's like that is the only voice I hear, is that dope that wanted me to that I wanted to do. So as soon as I do the shot, I could tell things were off. And I go and check her out, and the noise that I thought was a snore was not a snore. It was like a rattling in her, and she was dead. So I tried to perform CPR, and it was way past that. It was like just a foam came out, and body was it was obvious that she was dead, and I
Wow.
completely freaked out. Um, and by this time, like I had been doing heroin for like almost about 14 years,
Wow.
constantly, and not to mention, and I had a lifetime of degeneracy behind that. So I did not have it in me to do the right thing at that moment, nor did I even know what the right thing was.
Right.
Um, so I panicked, and I did nothing. And
Mhm.
the worst decision to ever make in life, and this is something that I've just carried with me ever since this, was to not make a decision. Um,
Right.
so I didn't make a decision, and every moment that I didn't make a decision, the situation got worse. So I left, and I didn't know what to do, and I went on to the next thing, and I still didn't know what to do. I went on to the next thing, and I still didn't know what to do. So by the end of the night, I had put myself in this situation to where I had this poor girl's dead body in a motel room, and I was way past the point of being able to do anything rational
Right.
or just good. Um, and I was getting paranoid. I was doing a lot of other drugs also, which was making the whole situation even worse.
Right.
So I go back to the hotel room. I was planning on taking her body and like bringing it to the hospital or something, or just trying to detach myself from the situation. But the selfishness in me and the degeneracy in me would not allow me to do anything where I would have an immediate consequence. And it was then the most despicable act I've ever done. I ended up hiding her body in a storage unit, and I
Wow.
ran back to New York to
Yeah.
leave it for somebody else to deal with. Um,
Mhm.
so I I end up driving through, just in a just horrible state. Um, and by this point, like I've always lived with some type of shame and some type of lack of self acceptance. But I
Mhm.
was absolutely horrified and disgusted with the person that I had become. And there's this bridge on the 77 that goes through like either Virginia or West Virginia,
Mhm.
and it's just this huge drop. And and I thought about killing myself, and in a way where I was like, well, not just thinking about it, but making the decision: do I drive off this bridge or what? And there's like significant parts of my life that that allowed me to see some clarity. I had a close family member, kill himself when I was 16, and I
Mhm.
seen the destruction that did to my family. Um,
Right.
I have a daughter, and the love I still have for my child, opened my heart up enough for me to finally reach out to God in a way that wasn't like God help me. It was just like God let this stop, and
Right.
I opened myself up to listen to Him for the first time. And I drove off that bridge the normal way, and finally felt like some type of comfort and some type of sense of being all right with the situation. I knew everything was going to be bad. Like I knew that this wasn't going to be that I was going to drive up to New York, and just life would go on, and I wouldn't have consequences. But
Right.
for some reason, I felt God's love, and I felt like that grace for the first time, and knew what it meant to have a relationship with God. And I just kept going. That allowed me to move forward, and that for some reason my mind opened up, and I could see my past in a different way. it wasn't like all these things that I had to shiver about. It was these things that I could grow from, and that would give me an understanding of a different type of construct in life. And so I went to a friend's house and just kind of waited and listened to this story unravel on the news,
Mm.
and it was worse than I thought. You know, everything. I thought maybe by having some distance, something would offer some kind of relief, but I was fine with it not doing that. And I can say my experience throughout this situation with God, with having a relationship with God that I was willing to have,
Mm-hmm.
everything was completely different than what would be expected. And all of the little nuances that have happened contributed to a more honest answer in life, and a more honest answer in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
It turned out really bad. I faced life and a whole bunch of other time besides that, and I just kept going, and I was okay, and nothing um, nothing was what it would have been if I didn't have that,
Right.
and I was grateful all the time because of that.
Mm-hmm.
I suffered like an amount of stress, and I went through amount of everything, but at the whole time I knew this girl died, and none of that mattered what I was going through.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I was able to accept my accountability in this, and I was never able to do that before, because there was always something for me to say, well, that didn't happen, or well, this didn't happen, or that, there was always this little gray area or a huge gray area that what was being applied to me wasn't interpreted correctly, so I can hold on to some semblance of rationalizing my own shitty behavior, so to say, if that makes sense. And this time I didn't have to do that. I was just okay with what the situation was. And I spent almost the next 9 years in prison after that. And
Mm-hmm.
and the way I did it was different. And um, it was like I knew purpose was coming. I knew that by me being kind to people in horrible situations, that it would make a difference at the moment. And even though I was just making a difference to people that were in the same bad situation, these were people that didn't generally have a conversation about having a relationship with God, or that it was okay to be the person that was walking away from drugs and alcohol. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in that environment, that is what is that is the conversation. Like, the conversation is to embellish what's wrong and to cling to that. And for somebody to do outside of that is against the norm. And you're not the most popular guy around. But I
Mm-hmm.
always had an audience, and I always had people that that were drawn to me and allowed
Mm-hmm.
me to form like good relationships even in there. And it was always based on the acceptance of having God and to be able to do the right thing. So 9 years later, like, I get out, and the first thing I did was go to an AA meeting,
Mm-hmm.
and was to embrace this type of life that I have been, reading about and been talking about. And I had gone through the 12 steps over and over in the type of way that I could. And instead of wanting, like, every time I was in some kind of consequence, the first thing I wanted was a drink and a new girl to hang out with and all that stuff. And this time I just wanted family. I just wanted relationships. I just wanted to have an honest version of life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been happening exponentially, like, in ways that are just unimaginable. And every day I have a newfound affirmation that God is working in my life, from from just walking down the street, my reactions to people are different, and people's reactions to me are different now. There's still, there's still that like, man, you've been in prison. You have to, like, sometimes I feel like my relationships are a little imbalanced. Like I have to give this, like a, I don't even know what to call it. Like a
tough guy, or yeah, like you're playing this role you had before, but then you've changed the balance, right?
Yeah. So it's like I feel I owe people a disclaimer. Like, hey, I know you enjoy my friendship, but I'm tainted. Like I'm dirty in a way that's not regular, and then and that's a work in progress. And I know that's God, like, keeping me humble, keeping me in some state that He wants me in. Because I'm a thorough believer that there is purpose behind every feeling, every nuance, every thought. It's just up to ourselves to give it the kind of energy that God would want us to have. And that doesn't mean I should destroy myself with shame, but just understand those feelings and allow them to be useful in whatever way it is. And I've learned through Alcoholics Anonymous that there's so many people that have these same kind of feelings throughout all walks of life, whether they've grew up in a affluent neighborhood and whatever, or just have never had the type of experience in crime and delinquency that I had. But inside, we're all the same, and I think we all have to come to this. Some people maybe don't get the chance to, but I think for us to reach our actualization in life, we have to come to terms with our own frailty, our own failures.
Yeah, but
move on in God's purpose.
That's true. I'm a firm believer in Christ as well. And one thing that I believe strongly is when you Christ and you're forgiven, you're forgiven, and He doesn't see you as what you've done. As hard as that may be, I think it's harder for us to understand that, because sometimes we carry the guilt of things that we've done, and it's a process, because He may have forgiven, but we have to allow the healing process and forgive ourselves. And that's on every level. And what you went through, and all different sorts of situations. So it's that gap between His forgiveness and us seeing ourselves as forgiven. And when we can see ourselves as forgiven, I truly believe we're able to live the purpose that He has for us fully. So yeah, it's just that gap. You don't carry the guilt and the weight. That's for Him to carry. That's why He did what He did for us. And that's what I truly believe. And so it's freedom in that. And it's things like this that create the healing and create, the purpose. And you went through those things, but none of it has to be in vain. None of it has to be a waste. We've all been through things, and we've all done things, that regret or whatnot. But it's freedom in knowing when you have a relationship in Christ. This is my belief. Everybody has their own beliefs, but I've found peace in the things that I've done wrong. Knowing that I'm a work in progress. I have to do X, Y, and Z to change, and that relationship with Christ is so important, and you treat it as any other relationship, and I don't want to, I'm not a pastor or minister or anything like that, but I know whenever I have desires of things and stuff like that, I try to just submerge myself in Christ and read and pray stuff more, because everybody has urges. No human being on does not have an urge for something, So I really, really commend you. Like, from the bottom of my heart for sharing this, and I can see on you the change, see it in your eyes, and the drive and the willingness to allow Christ, to allow yourself to be a positive force to change for this. And that's what it's all about. You know, that's what it's all about, because some people don't make it to the stage you're in. Some people continue on the path, but you decided, even though you still may have some things in healing, you know, when you can see Christ as your father. Same thing with my father. He wasn't in my life, and I went through some things, but I understand who my earthly father is, and I understand who my spiritual, my real father, you know? And so it's perspective. And let's see here. So you came to Charlotte, all of that happened, and you got out. So now, how long have you've been out? How long have you been out?
6 months, 6.5 months.
Well, congratulations to you. I just wanted to say congratulations. And you've been going to meetings and everything, you said.
Yeah, I have a community of the most incredible people in my life. It's the friendships I've made in these last few months are some of the people I respect and love more than anything. It's like I've known them forever.
Yeah.
But I noticed with Christ in my heart, when I meet people, it's like I knew them forever. Like I don't have that curve of like needing to develop some kind of, like, I don't have to scrutinize people in a way like, is this person going to hold up, or are they going to be full of betrayal? Because my level of discernment and God's protection has just filled my life with wonderful people. And if anybody is watching this, and if you're in my life, it's because I love you and I appreciate you, and you are just incredible people. And it's okay for me to do that. And there was always a piece of me that wanted to love every person around, every person that comes into contact with me. I just didn't understand that until I had God in my life. And I think that's been a critical role. It's allowed me to be employable now. I'm very employable now.
Oh, wow. Congratulations.
The background check thing might not be the best in the world, but God has put things in my path to allow me to overcome all of that.
Yeah.
And I see that. That's not me. I'm not the guy creating this thing. It is God removing mountains out of my life, allowing these things to develop, which is just, it's so incredible. And it's allowed me to walk in faith in a way that I wouldn't even understand unless I took a couple of steps.
Yeah.
To start.
Yeah.
That's, and the third step in AA is to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understand Him. And that is so profound. Like,
it is. It is.
Don't regret it.
No, never. You never regret it. And I think you said it, taking those steps, and you take it day by day, day by day. It's a day by day, second by second, just choices, whether you've been through what you've been through. Like myself, I have to take my situation day by day. It's a daily walk for all of us. So that's very true. So what now, day by day, right? But is there anything in particular, maybe that your heart that you feel like God has put in your heart, or something you wanted to accomplish, or, in regards, and that's come out of all of it?
Yeah, so I definitely want to be a great presence in my daughter's life. But as far as purpose, I think I have a unique understanding of how the application of law is just not honest. It's dishonest. And it's dishonest because there's these huge gaps in it. And I think the conversation about the application of law is misleading, and that's what's keeping us from actually making these social justice corrections that need to be done, because the mainstream conversation that I see is always has some kind of agenda that's just not right.
Mm.
What's going on? Well, I don't want to get into that because that's a long,
That's
long story.
a feel, right?
But that is what when I start talking about that, like that sparks the spirit inside me. That
Hmm.
is, it's not anger, it's not anything. It's love and a willingness to be a contribution. And I could see clearly the things in my life that kind of define some of these lackings in the system.
Hmm.
There's
So,
there's a better way. There's definitely a better way.
so you've experienced, and yeah, we don't have to get into it, but you've experienced that gap in the system.
Yeah, and it carries through. It's misleading. It carries through everything,
Mm.
And I think and this country has some of the most amazing people ever. I could walk. There's people walking around where I'm at right now, and I know I could go have a conversation with any of these people.
Right.
And that's how our society actually is. But if you listen to the story of our society, that's like we're a conflict-based nation, and there's all these things that are keeping us apart. But
Right.
I see so many things that unite us, and
Yeah,
we're full of beautiful people. We just don't allow each other to see it as that.
that's true. I totally agree. I totally agree with that. So many different, diverse, and unique people out there. And like you said, we have to give ourselves the time and the ability to get to know each other enough to
Yeah.
see it. And that's so true. But one thing that can you share with us one thing as far as a takeaway from all of this, if you had to sum it up, if you can, into something as a takeaway, what would that be?
That no matter what your experiences are in life, it is okay to be you, and that is the only way you're going to have a successful, comfortable life is when you can meet yourself where you're at. It's easy to meet other people where they're at, but when you can finally meet yourself and tell that inner child you're okay, and allow that healing to just happen. Because it's not something we can't do. You can't pour a little healing out in the morning, but you can allow God to untangle that mess in your life and just work. And once them things start happening, that your path will allow movement in all directions, and God will allow you to go through the messes and understand them and become this actualized person that you deserve to be. And I wish that for everybody.
Yeah, I do too. I truly, truly thank you, Michael. Hopefully, this was as great for you as it is for me, and those are going to watch it. And I do, again, thank you and appreciate you for being so transparent. And I thank you for your progress, your journey, because it's those who go through journeys, that are able to share and help others. And if people are not able or willing to share these things, then we can't lead the ones who are going down the same path. So I do thank you for that and truly appreciate your time. And in close, this is my story, and you can follow me on Instagram. And again, thank you, Michael, for everything that you share, and I wish you the absolute best journey.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank
I
you.
love what you're doing too.
Thank you
So
so.
great.
I I'm so blessed by it already. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
All right, bye bye.